Radical Normal.
Sound painting, simply put, sound painting is a sign language, multidisciplinary sign language for creating live composition. Simply put, that's what it is. It works with musicians, dancers, actors, visual artists, people from all walks of life. It's, again, simply, it's a sign language for live composition.
Moi, tout le long. Moi, avec ça, avec ça, c'est 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 avec ça.
Pour moi, du soundpainting a été quelque chose de tout à fait naturel dans mon travail, puisque je travaillais déjà avec des acteurs, déjà avec des danseurs. Je suis musicien de jazz à l'origine, compositeur, et donc j'ai trouvé dans le soundpainting exactement la suite à mon travail. Là où j'étais arrivé avec ma compagnie, finalement, je sentais que j'avais besoin d'oxygène, un nouveau chemin à explorer, et la rencontre du soundpainting, pour moi, a été vraiment le déclic. Je me suis dit, c'est ça qu'il faut que je fasse, ça réunit tout ce que j'aime faire, et donc je suis parti dans ce travail-là. Donc j'ai commencé par, sur la région, organiser des stages, former des gens, puisqu'on a affaire à un langage, et il fallait d'abord former des artistes. Donc j'ai fait plusieurs stages. De ces stages, un peu comme on dirait en cinéma, est sorti une sorte de casting. On a gardé certains artistes plus que d'autres. Et en 2009, s'est créé le Batik Soundpainting Orchestra, qui rassemble aujourd'hui une vingtaine de performeurs, donc acteurs bien sûr, danseurs, musiciens. On peut travailler avec un artiste visuel. On a même travaillé avec des gens qui viennent d'autres disciplines. J'ai travaillé avec une personne qui était vraiment un clown professionnel. Donc c'est un orchestre régulier, mais qui est toujours ouvert sur...
What's up, ladies and gentlemen? Welcome to Radical Normal. This is Damon Scranton coming to you live from Pasadena, California, along with Max Searcy, running things behind the scene in Brooklyn, New York. This is amazingly our 8th show, if you count the 3 previews. And this is our 5th global Radical Normal show. We are going to be joined once again by a global radical sensation named Walter Thompson. And we're just going to get the videos out of the way. So we have one more little video clip to watch of Walter in action, and then we're just going to have a straight up conversation. So Max, can we watch the beginning of the second video, and then we'll come back and we will meet Walter. All right, so that's a little taste of Walter's work in action. Walter, so good to see you.
Yeah, great to see you, Damon. Been
Walter,
too long.
It has been too long. We got to catch up a little bit online.
Yeah.
Walter is coming to us from Sweden, where it is 3 o'clock in the morning, or a little bit thereafter. So thank you once again for joining us so late or early, depending on how it's.
Oh, yeah, you're very welcome. Very welcome. It's my pleasure.
Let's just jump in, because I have so many things to talk to you about.
Great.
And I'm sure sound painting will run through, but we've already had Lise Walker and Nolan Kennedy and Angelique Cormier. So we've got this sound painting arsenal that's going on. I want to go back and talk about how Walter Thompson came to be a sound painter. So talk to me a little bit about the beginning. I found out all kinds of things about you, like you were born in West Palm Beach, Florida, which I never knew.
Yeah. I was born in West Palm Beach, and you know, I was a real outdoor kid. I spent most of the time with short pants, no shirt, and no shoes. My parents would say, you know, put your shoes on, you know, because it's see myself and my brothers and sister going out the door, and you know, and we would put our shoes on as soon as we got outside. We'd hide them in the bushes and put them on when we'd come home. I had calluses so thick when I was a kid. Excuse me.
That's what happened when you wear your bare feet outside.
Yeah, I mean, it was great. I had no idea things were like stuck in the bottom of my feet until I would feel my feet go, oh, there's something stuck in my foot. But, but I, you know, I was lucky as a child, because going all the way back in West Palm Beach, my mother, who is still alive, she's 94 and soon celebrating her 95th birthday. My mother used to take me out, and we'd go in the car and we'd go find junk, you know, and then come back, and we would, my mother would let me like make sculptures in the front yard. You know, the neighbors hated it, but my mother supported what I was doing. So I'd find all this junk and stack it all together. And what am I, like 4 or 5 years old? And so she was really, my mother and father both were very, very like supportive of any type of creative effort their children were interested in. So that was kind of, in a way, the beginning of sort of my parents fostering my improvisation, my creative side, you know. And so then my father found out about Woodstock, New York. My father was a doctor and also a painter, a very serious painter. He was a bit like Chekhov in that way, you know, that he had another, you know, occupation. And so he found out about Woodstock, and we started going up to Woodstock for 3 to 4 months every year when I was 6 years old. And then I was just surrounded as a kid by all these artists that are very, you know, famous, most of them dead today, but very famous painters. And I mean, so I got to grow up, you know, looking at how these people live their life. And I felt that, you know, that's kind of what I wanted to do. But taking a quick step back, Damon, just to tell you a story. I was, my first instrument was the piano. My mother started me on that, teaching me little songs when I'm like 4 years old. And then I wanted to play guitar. Actually, I wanted to play banjo. And I couldn't, for some reason, we couldn't find a banjo. So my mother got me on guitar, and I'm 6 years old. And she was taking me to my lessons. I really didn't like the lessons very much. I learned later my teacher was drunk, because later on in life, I was like, what is that smell on this breath? And then later on in life, I realized, oh, it was alcohol, and when I spelled it on somebody later in life, I said, oh yeah, that's what my teacher smelled like. But anyway, at one of the lessons, this is how I came to decide. When I was 6 years old, I decided what I want to do for life. My mother had given me some money, like 25, 50 cents, something like that, to go after my lesson. It was in downtown West Palm Beach. So here am I taking my guitar lesson. She says, if I'm not back in time to pick you up, go across to the diner, get yourself, a cup of coffee and, a piece of pecan pie. I started coffee when I was young.
I was going to ask you.
Well, like a Cajun mom, my mom's Cajun. So, and so, not that means you drink coffee with your kids, but for some reason, I think it does. And so here I am, 6 years old. My mother's not on time. I go across to the diner. I'm 6 years old in the big city of West Palm Beach. There's like 4 buildings. And here I am in the big city. And I'm not kidding. At that point in my life, I decided, here I am. I'm in a diner. I'm out in the town. I'm an artist. This is what I want to do. And really, honestly, that's when it hit me. And I can take myself all the way back to that moment. I remember sitting there looking out the window and, drinking my coffee, eating my pecan pie, and thinking, this is what I want to do for life.
That's amazing to come to it at 6 years old. We can dwell on a lot of this. I kind of want to touch on Woodstock again. And your sculpture garden makes me think of Roscoe's sculpture garden up there. Mm-hmm. But when did Louisiana happen? And I'm sorry, you have to explain. You had a water moccasin?
Yeah, I had a water moccasin.
As a pet?
A snake. Yes, a snake.
Yes, one of 4 poisonous snakes in the United States.
Well, I was good, as a growing up in Florida. I was a real outdoor kid. I could swim before I could walk almost, and so I knew a lot about the outdoors. Not to be a teacher of it, but just to know what to do and what not to do. Don't go swimming in places where there's alligators, for example, and I don't know, I was at a camp in the summer and I caught a water moccasin, and it was a baby, and I wanted to take it back home after camp was over, back down to West Palm Beach. I was up near Orlando, Florida. So I put in, my brothers were with me, my brothers Charles and Richard. So I put the water moccasin in my pocket and I took it back home. It really was not much more than like 6 inches or so. And I took it back home. And I kept it for a while, but as it started to get a bit bigger, I let it go, took it down to a canal and let it go.
Well, we were talking about my snakes earlier. I have a red-tailed boa who's about 4 feet now, but I used to have a Mexican boa who was about 5.5 feet. My mom used to, on the fly, Max is showing us water moccasins. My mom
Max.
would put the boa constrictor in her purse and go into supermarkets with it and not realize that it was coming out of her purse. So people would scream and managers would be like, ma'am, you need to leave right now. So it's logical that you'd put it in your pocket.
Yeah, I mean, the bus driver wouldn't let me take it home. People were afraid of snakes, so.
I wouldn't want it in my car.
It was a nice snake.
You have a lot of snake stories, I can tell.
I do have some snake stories.
We should really just get together and talk reptiles.
Yeah, some people don't like reptiles, but growing up in Florida, I mean, there's snakes a lot. There were a lot of snakes and alligators and things like that you learn about as a kid if you're going to be outside.
Yeah, but I mean, a water moccasin is poisonous.
And I knew that, but I was, you learn how to handle snakes.
I guess so. And you learn how to handle tigers too. Ask the Lord. Until one time with that snake, it's like, I'm going to handle you this time.
And that's what happened when I had an alligator. My parents had bought me a small alligator, and the damn thing bit me, and I had to let it go, you know. After I had it for a few years, though.
Who hasn't had a pet alligator and then had to let it go after it bites them? I mean,
That's what you do, right? That's life, you know. I mean, I had a piece of hamburger, you know, and I was always feeding it hamburger. I had it like in a tub outside, and I went to give it hamburger. And those, you know, alligators, crocodiles, alligators, caimans, they're faster than a horse in a short distance.
oh, they're fast. Yeah.
They're fast. They get up on their hind legs and, you know. And so I put some hamburger into the little place, and that alligator came across. You know, at this point, it was like, you know, 2 feet, and it came across. It just grabbed my hand. You know, it wouldn't let go. And, you know, it couldn't eat my hand. It was that strong. Finally, it let me go, and then I let it go into the neighbor's yard, and it ate all the neighbors' goldfish in their pond, and I got in trouble.
You got in a lot of trouble.
Yeah.
Let's leave trouble behind. Trouble. Tell me, this is going to go on forever. We have to keep a management of the time. Tell me, before sound painting even started, what was the jazz scene like in New York and Woodstock back in the day?
Back in where? Like the 70s?
I mean, you were born in like the aughts,
50s,
right?
Yeah.
No, I know, I'm kidding. When you first started, yeah, like the 70s and the 80s, I think of it as New York being such a different city back then.
Yeah. My father was saying he's a painter. He was a very serious painter. So he used to always listen to music, a lot of Charlie Parker, or then he'd turn around and listen to all kinds of music, you know, Stockhausen, Charles Ives, et cetera, country music. He listened to everything. Jimi Hendrix, when he came around, my father listened as he painted. And I used to laugh when I would hear jazz. I would hear bebop. He would put on these records from Norman Granz Jazz at the Philharmonic, and there would be Charlie Parker along with Lester Young and other players. And I would hear bebop, and it would make me laugh, you know. I don't know why. I just thought it was so fun. And then so early on, so I went from like guitar. When my teacher was too drunk, I quit that. And I started studying drums, always in the background playing piano. We had 2 pianos in our house, you know. So I'm always playing piano. My sister Phyllis and my brother Charles were studying piano. So of course I didn't want to study with the teacher. I was always just improvising on it. But I did study percussion, study drums. And at one point when I was a teenager, I started, probably around 14, 15, I started to study jazz. You know, that was in West Palm Beach. You know, I asked my teacher to teach me about jazz. In Woodstock, I was mostly, you know, I was playing. I started playing professionally, like when I was 12, playing bar mitzvahs and things. And I think we only do 3 songs, but, you know, they only paid us $5, so that's all you get for $5 is 3 songs. That's also all we knew. But you know, Woodstock at the time was more of like a being around my father and mother's friends, and there was a music scene there, a great music scene, of course. You know, I was right down the street from Janis Joplin rehearsing with Big Brother and the Holding Company, and Hendrix would come and practice there with them sometimes. I mean, it was a real rich scene. Bob Dylan and there, all kinds of painters. But my exposure to kind of music in Woodstock came in the 70s when I left Berklee School of Music and I went back to live in our home in Woodstock that was empty. And then it was a real rich scene going on. But I was a man at that point.
Man, and you were there during Woodstock in '69.
Yeah, it's something I like to tell people is I have in our family, we still have Woodstock poster, Woodstock Festival. It's a woodcut from a great painter named Bruce Dorfman, and it's the Woodstock Festival 1964. So people don't actually know the history of the festival, and just quickly, they were every year, and '69 was too big for the town, so they went somewhere else. So I was there for '68, But 69, I had a little fight with my girlfriend on the street in Woodstock, and we got in trouble, and my parents punished me. I couldn't go to the festival.
Little did you know what you were missing.
Yeah, I know, terrible. But I actually got to play in the last big festival of 1969 in the Miami Rock Festival. We played, the band I was in, we played after the Grateful Dead.
Oh, man.
Oh, yeah. Oh, that was stupid. I don't know how we got into that festival. We had a very persuasive manager.
So you went on at like 1 a.m. is what you're saying?
No, we were on in the afternoon.
Okay. I'm just thinking of, I've been to enough Dead concerts in my time. Maybe they weren't playing as long of a set back then.
Yeah, this was back when Pigpen was in the group and alive. And so this goes way back, right? So yeah, no, they got it. We went on probably about 3 or 4 o'clock in the afternoon. But you know what's strange about it? There's no history of it. I can't find it anywhere. And I know people still in Florida that have done, articles and researched the festival. And for some reason, we're cut out of it. I don't know why. We probably shouldn't have been there. We were just kids. But we were in the festival, right up there with everybody.
So tell me, and Max, I think we can start cycling through these photos. Otherwise, we're really going to run out of time. But we don't have to talk about each photo. Tell me about the actual birth of sound painting. If I remember correctly, the very first gesture was it echo?
No, background.
Background.
No, background is a gesture, actually a gesture created by Duke Ellington that I took into the language. But the very first, it was Woodstock, and I got out of Berklee School of Music and moved there and was waiting to start my studies with Anthony Braxton, the great composer. And I heard he was moving from Paris to Woodstock. But anyway, I'd formed an orchestra with people who left the Creative Music School for the summer because it was closed in the summer. And the Creative Music School started by Carl Berger and Ingrid Surtsis and Ornette Coleman and Don Cherry. This was a great school, and it brought all these amazing musicians. And the summer to Woodstock throughout the academic year, and it closed in the summer. People were left there, so a lot of musicians hung out for the summer, and I formed an orchestra with who was around, and I wrote some music, others wrote music, and I was pretty much the conductor most of the time, and I was conducting through a piece of mind, lots of improvisation. We had 7 dancers who were dancing to what we were doing, just relating to what we were doing, and we basically little fragments of ideas and then improvisation. And during the first improvisation by a trumpet player, I was trying, he was supposed to relate to the notation of mine, make it, thematic improvisation, build it around what I wrote. But he didn't do that. So I was trying to support that. And in the moment, I didn't have a syntax like who, what, how, when, like we do today. But in the moment, I went you to support what he was doing, to bring the piece back to what I wanted it to be kind of as the composer. I pointed at a few people and I made this sign and I said, play. And that was the birth, And then I went a few minutes later, I tried to do you pointillism and said play, and that worked. And then I started to think about it, and I've been studying lots of alternate ways of notating music and using cards, the color yellow to imply something for musicians. So it wasn't, I've been playing paintings at Berklee School of Music where they put a painting in front of us and would play that, so it wasn't so far-fetched to think about the body as a way of communicating the symbol.
So how many gestures are you up to now?
Well, at the moment, I'm working on rewriting the dictionary. It's been compiled over the past 20 years and finally time to publish it while I can still think. And so I've started to rewrite it all over again for the millionth time. And I would think it's going to be, this particular dictionary is going to have maybe over 1,100 gestures codified. And there's another several hundred floating out there So there's around 1,500 more or less, I would say. It's hard to say.
I'm sure. And there are so many people on different continents who are doing it in so many different contexts, and the language kind of evolves like any language would into different dialects. So it's really interesting to get together. What do you call it again? The think tank?
The think tank, yeah.
Where you get together in one place in Paris or wherever, and a bunch of people come and you share gestures and stuff. Every year, that must be crazy because you must get some new gestures that you're like, I never knew you could do that with dancers, or audio visual. Yeah, that's a great interpretation of that. Or that's a terrible gesture. You can't use that for that. It must be.
It is that. I mean, the think tanks, earlier on, the think tanks were a lot about people wanting to show new signs that they thought of and wanted to bring in. And I kept track of all of those. So some of those are in the dictionary, and I'm having to kind of rethink them and recodify them as I work on this dictionary like daily. But the think tanks these days are more about how do we bring sound painting, what is sound painting in the world of composition in its multidisciplinary way, or how does sound painting work in education, et cetera? What do we do? It's a different, today we don't even like to talk about new signs.
Yeah.
We just say, no more new signs. No.
You got enough. Use one of the old ones.
Yeah, there's plenty of old ones,
So the orchestra that you were talking about forming, first of all, was that what ultimately became the WTO?
No. No, not at all. That was Woodstock. And then after Woodstock, I moved down to New York City after studying almost 10 years with Anthony Braxton, studying composition and woodwinds. I moved down to New York City, and a couple of those people that were in Woodstock were also moved down to New York City. But that was like around 1980. And then I started the group that I still have together today.
You are such a nexus of things. You were talking about how your work with Irondale Theater was really the first time that you started working with actors in depth. But between the Tour Sound Painting Orchestra and the Walter Thompson Orchestra and Irondale and Letter of Marque and Strike Anywhere, like you're the center of so many people I know. And I had the pleasure of getting to be on stage with Anthony Braxton and yourself. So I got to witness his genius firsthand. My memory of him was you conducting and him playing. What was he playing? Clarinet?
It's sopranino. It's a E-flat saxophone, small saxophone.
And he's on his back on the floor, pushing himself across the floor, playing this instrument. And I was like, I've died and gone to heaven.
Yeah, a lot of people didn't realize, or maybe they know now what a multidisciplinary thinker he is. He's always been into multidisciplinary work, just the way he would describe his compositions, graphically in his beautiful drawings. So he was, collaborations can be tough, because the collaboration kind of creates a third mind in a way, and you have to recognize that third mind as something that's, viable to the project and not something you want to fight with. And I've had a lot of collaborations that have gone sour because misinterpretation of how I'm going to use their work with how I use it in sound painting. But working with Anthony Braxton was just a dream. He was just so accepting that, every day we would go to lunch and talk about X factors, what are the X factors tonight? We would try to put 2 or 3 things on the group. You were there.
Yeah.
And then that would make it really hard for us to compose live because he was using language musics and sound painting, and I was using his system, language musics, and of course sound painting. And I wasn't playing any instrument, but he would go. But we would always, as both live composers, made it hard for ourselves. And that was really fun to do something that we had to solve the problem. And we didn't know how to solve it. But we had languages that we could use to solve the problem in real time. Don't solve it ahead of time. You don't have our conversation before we have it.
Yeah. That was part of me not wanting to have a conversation too much with you tonight. Like, you know,
right.
let's
Yeah.
let it be. Can I call timeout and ask, go back, Max, one photo. I'm sorry, I was 5 seconds too late. Can you tell us where this gorgeous orchestra is? I've never seen you conduct so many people before. Uh-oh, you there still? I think we've lost Walter for...
Oh, no, I'm here.
Okay, good.
Okay, sorry, I didn't... I was
so still.
No, I'm here. Maybe it's 3 o'clock in the morning and I've gone zombie, you know. Yeah, I'm here. Ah, yes, that group. That was how many? 175?
Jeez.
And it was a real mixture of choruses and of course my members of my orchestra were interspersed and several orchestras in there. So it was a massive group, and I was working with Angélique Cormier, and it was a piece that we had done in I forget where we were, somewhere in the middle of France, and it yeah, wonderful work. Angélique had prepared everything, prepared the group, so I just came in and all I had to do was raise my arms up and start sound painting. It was wonderful.
Montlouis, France.
Ah, oui, bon, oui.
Ooh, Lise is on the chat. She got your back. Oh man, I got distracted. What was it going to say? Well, okay, so we are gonna have to watch the clock. I am gonna do what I did with Julian 2 weeks ago and just list a number of places where you've worked, and then I'm gonna list a number of places where you've taught, just so we can hear it, and then I'm gonna ask you about a couple maybe specific memories of projects that you have. But you've worked in Barcelona, Paris, obviously, New York, obviously, Chicago, Los Angeles, Boston, Oslo, Berlin, Bergen, Lucerne, Copenhagen, Reykjavik. It's a really long list. At the Conservatoire de Paris, Eastman School of Music, which I don't even know where that is, the Iceland Academy of the Arts, the University of Michigan, the Grieg Academy in Bergen, Norway, University of Iowa, Oberlin College, and NY University. It's such a long list, and you've been so many places. You already talked about Anthony Braxton. Are there just from all that body of work, like a couple of projects or memories that stick in your mind of like, oh man, that one was amazing?
Yeah, that's an interesting question, because one of the things I like about sound painting is that it's, for me, like, and this may sound like trite or kind of flippant in some kind of way, but almost always it's amazing. And the reason for that is that if I go there, for example, if you compare going to, as a composer, a traditional composer, which is what I was trained in, composing for orchestra, but with contemporary music as my background. But if you go take your composition to be played by different orchestras, then you might like it as a composer, like this orchestra better than the other. When you go to, when the people give you the material to compose with, you're working with an entirely different sort of set of emotions that you deal with. For example, if I come to a concert feeling flat, you know, I don't have to worry about feeling flat for the entire composition I'm composing live, because the energy coming from the group will wake me right up. So having said that, when I think back about like pieces that I've done around the world, they were all really good because I have all these people who are giving themselves to the moment, to the gesture. We've spent time rehearsing, and you know, there it is. So all of the pieces that I've done, I would say, are good. As far as something being really great, of course, my work with Anthony Braxton has a special spot for me because of what he means to me in life. Of course, with my orchestra, you know, there's many great performances I can think of. But to try to pick out one in particular, it's really hard to do.
I know. You know, and I always tell people as an actor, sound painting is very liberating to me because it takes the onus off of me to be creative to a certain extent. I can respond to a gesture in any way I want. Like I need to remember my punch palette and my work that I've done. But basically, if the sound painter doesn't like what I'm doing, they can just go actor one out, right? Like just stop doing that.
And also just to say, when you do that as a live composer, your instrument, so to speak, is the people. So if I do that to you, Damon, if I've done that to you, like, actor one, off, or slowly exit or something, if I do that a few times, every time you come in, if I do it in such a way, it can put you in the wrong state of mind in the composition. So when a live composer takes somebody out, because they don't want to work with that color at that point, or that emotion, or that visual offering, when a sound painter takes somebody out, it's really important how you take them out. Otherwise, you can, putting it simply, damage your composition.
Yeah, I understand.
It could be too much, like, nah, I don't want that. So you have to be, I was just teaching this to a student of mine the other day. You have to be very careful about when there's something that you kind of don't want to have at that moment, what you do with it, how you take it out. And if you just kind of dismiss it like, I don't like that, it leaves a hole in the composition.
So I told you I was maybe going to ask you if you would say something in Swedish for us, just because I can't pass up the opportunity to hear Swedish. Can I ask you a question and you can respond to it in Swedish and then kind of maybe...
Ja, varför inte? Jag frågar mig någonting.
So my question is, as a sound painter, what is it specifically that you listen for?
Allt. Jag lyssnar för allt. Men jag måste bli och vara lite, hur kan man säga, jag måste vara calm. Det är samma ord på engelska. Så jag står i mitt plats och jag lyssnar och jag tittar och jag beslutar vad jag ska göra nästa.
And paraphrase that just for a little.
Okay, so what I say is that, I'm standing there listening. I watch, I listen, and I take in what's going on, and I just stand there and keep my ears open so that I can decide on what I'm going to do next.
I had never thought of it in terms of how you take people out and how damaging that can be. Because I never felt damaged, but I did feel every once in a while like, they didn't like what I was doing.
Right. And if that happens 5 or 6 times in the composition, then you quit. You don't offer at the same level as you were at the beginning. And
that's true.
Your offer drops down.
Well, you start laying out.
You start laying out, yeah. When the opportunity is there, right? It's important. It's making art with people, in the moment that it's such, we all, not to get too deep into this, but it's something like point to point, and you're pointing at somebody and you're saying, give me something now. The person has to be comfortable. They have to trust you. They have to, they give their offer in a way that they know maybe you might do something with it or not. The sound painting performer is another sort of, it's a different type of performer.
Yeah, it is. Yeah. But I love it. It's very liberating as an actor, I have to tell you.
Ah, great. Well, it was great working with you all the time that you were in the orchestra for quite a long time. And
I mean, I came and went. I always felt a little bit like an outsider, and I never knew more than like 200 gestures. I'm always like, but it was some of the best stage experiences of my life. And I'm telling you,
thanks.
Degenerate Art with Irondale, it was so fun because that was my intro to sound painting. And not only to get to do it live in the show, but then to get to act with you as Joseph Goebbels. It was so much fun.
Yes, that was great.
I had an epiphany about a cacophony of music.
Right.
Yeah, I just remember you would play one note and it would be nice and it'd be like, yeah, that's good music. And then you would just put a little bit of dissonance in there. And it's like, that, no dissonance, please.
And then I would have to, stop the group and stand up. We were on stage, of course, doing Degenerate Art. And I'd stand up and walk over to your Goebbels and I would improvise my lines and give you a hard time. That was great fun.
Oh, it was great fun for me too. So I'm looking at the clock and I'm seeing it's 9:46. which means that we really need to play this last video and let the people go. I think that if you'll stay on, Walter, maybe you and Max and I can catch up for a second, and we'll decide whether we do a little appendage to edit and put together later. But thank you so much.
You're very welcome.
At 3 o'clock in the morning, your time.
Yeah, people should know that what I did was I went to sleep at 8 and woke up at 1. Oh, I didn't stay up. I couldn't do it. I was too tired. So
But, well, we thank you, and we're all spread out anyway, because I'm in California and we got people in New York and people in Europe. So,
well, thanks to you and Max for the opportunity to speak. It's nice.
Oh, I could talk to you forever. So, Max, we don't know exactly what we're doing for our next show, to tell you the truth. We might take a couple-week hiatus because I think this is our last Global Radical Normal show. So I guess everybody out there, stay tuned, and you'll hear from us what the next collection of shows will be. But thanks, Walter.
Thank you very much, Damon. Thanks, Max.
One more video to play everybody out, because we like doing that, and I could watch sound painting forever. So I'll see you on the flip side in 5 minutes. Everybody else, have a wonderful couple weeks. Loves you.
Radical Normal.